We've explored laws that build loyalty, seduce, inspire. But Law 44, this one is different. It's not about bonding, it's about breaking people.
It's surgical, subtle. The mirror effect doesn't attack directly, it reflects. And in doing so, it exposes their insecurities, their strategies, their emotional habits.
Exactly. It's power through reflection. When you mirror someone's behavior back to them, without commentary, without escalation, you remove their armor, because suddenly they're facing themselves.
And most people aren't ready for that. They think they control the game until they see their tactics played back in real time. It's disorienting, even humiliating.
Greene says it best, the mirror effect is an effective tool of psychological warfare. And I love that phrase, psychological warfare, because this isn't about brute force, it's mind against mind.
And here's the power. When someone lies, you lie. When they're passive-aggressive, you mirror that tone. When they provoke, you respond exactly as they do. No more, no less.
You give them no foothold, no reaction they can control. You reflect, coldly, precisely, until they unravel themselves.
It's terrifying for them, because most manipulation relies on imbalance, on reaction, on you overcorrecting. But the mirror offers no leverage.
It's like shadowboxing themselves, and over time it makes them anxious, angry, desperate, because they can't pull you out of position.
And that's the strategic heart of this law. You don't fight force with force. You reflect the force and let it collapse on its own.
That's what makes it brilliant and dangerous, because it demands absolute discipline. If you react emotionally, the mirror cracks.
This is a law for people who understand stillness, precision, the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself because it dismantles silently. The mirror doesn't just reflect behavior, it reflects intentions, and most people don't want to face their own motives.
Right, because deep down, a lot of manipulation depends on invisibility. People think their true reasons are hidden. When you reflect them, you force them to confront the part of themselves they deny.
That's why this law triggers such intense reactions. You're not insulting them. You're not even resisting them. You're showing them exactly who they are. And most egos aren't built to handle that.
It's the power of silence, of imitation. They speak with sarcasm, you reply with the same dryness. They play victim, you mirror that tone. Not to mock, but to hold up a clean mirror.
And that's what makes it devastating. You don't have to escalate. You don't have to be aggressive. You just match. You remove the target they were aiming for.
Suddenly, they can't find you in the equation. All they see is themselves, their tactics, their tone, their emotional patterns, now detached, now visible.
And once that happens, they lose control because their strategy relied on confusion and you've replaced it with reflection. That clarity destroys leverage.
I've seen this in negotiations. Someone tries to dominate with passive control. Instead of pushing back, you mirror their language, their pace, their evasions. By the third round, they're unraveling.
Because what they thought was power was just a pattern, and patterns only work when you respond predictably. The mirror breaks the loop.
And it's important to say, this tactic isn't cruel, it's clean. It doesn't humiliate publicly, it doesn't attack personally. It simply says, here you are. Is this who you want to be?
But ironically, that's what infuriates people. They'd rather be opposed than exposed. At least opposition feels like a fight they can win.
But exposure, quiet, calm, undeniable exposure, that leaves them nowhere to run.
And that's where the mirror becomes a weapon, not because it attacks, but because it removes the illusion. And for some, the illusion is everything. You know what's interesting? This law isn't loud. It doesn't look like strategy. That's what makes it brilliant, and often underestimated.
Exactly. You're not raising your voice, you're not calling anyone out, but you're taking total control of the dynamic without saying a word.
That's why it works so well in power structures where open conflict is risky. In a corporate setting, for example, mirroring someone's manipulation exposes them without violating protocol.
Right. You keep your tone, you match their language, you reflect their tactics, and let others notice what's happening. Suddenly, they look unstable while you remain composed.
And in politics, the mirror becomes even more explosive. Leaders who expose their opponents by simply reflecting their rhetoric back at them create public dissonance. It forces people to see the absurdity or aggression for what it really is.
And it gives you moral high ground because you're not attacking, you're illuminating. The aggression is theirs, you're just the echo.
And that echo is deafening, because when people hear their own tone reflected back, they either escalate or retreat.
It's also useful in personal relationships. When someone constantly uses guilt, sarcasm, or deflection, mirror it gently, with precision, and you'll watch the game collapse.
Because most toxic patterns depend on your reaction. If you don't react, if you reflect, you take away the fuel.
And what's left is the raw behavior standing alone, and often it looks a lot uglier when it's not being absorbed or justified by your emotional response.
But here's the thing, the mirror only works if you're emotionally centered. If you're reacting, it becomes mimicry, but if you're calm, it becomes strategy.
That's why this law requires inner stillness. You can't flinch, you can't perform, you have to become reflective space, neutral but revealing.
And people sense it. They feel exposed, even if they can't explain why, because it's not about what you're saying, it's what you're showing.
And when power shifts like that, silently, invisibly, is often irreversible.
Let's talk about the emotional toll, because this isn't a casual technique. It demands a kind of detachment that most people aren't trained for.
That's true. You can't use the mirror if you're still emotionally entangled. If you're hurt, insecure, or trying to win, it shows. And then it's not a mirror, it's a mask.
Exactly. The mirror effect only works when it's clean, neutral. It's not performance, it's presence. If you're trying to prove something, you've already lost the stillness it requires.
And that's the trap. People hear mirror them and think it's about copying, but mimicry is shallow, reflection is deeper. It means you studied them, absorbed them, and now you reveal them.
Which takes empathy. You have to understand what drives their behavior, not to excuse it, but to mirror it accurately.
That's why this law is dangerous in the wrong hands. If used from a place of resentment, it becomes mockery. If used with arrogance, it becomes cruelty.
But when used with awareness, even compassion, it becomes a form of discipline, a boundary, a way of saying, I won't fight you, but I won't absorb you either.
That's a powerful stance. It's not confrontation, it's clarity. And clarity is one of the most threatening things you can offer to someone who thrives in distortion.
Because they can't twist it. They can't manipulate what's being calmly mirrored back. Their only move is escalation or withdrawal.
And that's when you learn everything. Do they become enraged? Do they retreat? Do they reflect? The mirror reveals more than behavior. It reveals character.
And it puts the power back in your hands without you ever raising your voice. You didn't insult them, you didn't accuse, you simply refused to break your center.
That's the kind of power that transforms the room. You become the anchor while they spin.
But remember, to use this law well, you have to master yourself first. Otherwise, you're just reacting with a clever disguise.
And reaction is not power. Stillness is.
One of the most overlooked aspects of this law is its defensive power. You don't just use it to attack, you use it to protect yourself.
Exactly. When someone tries to bait you, emotionally, verbally, politically, the mirror makes you untouchable. Because you're no longer reacting, you're reflecting.
It becomes a kind of armor, a shield made of precision. You're not avoiding conflict, you're transforming it, redirecting it back to the source.
And that's why manipulators hate it. They feed on your overreaction, your defensiveness. But if you just mirror, they starve.
They lose access. Suddenly, their tactics don't land. Their tricks echo back empty. And that's when the desperation sets in.
I've seen this in boardrooms, in families, even in friendships. The person who was always in control begins to fall apart when their energy gets neutralized.
Because they're not used to accountability, not the public kind, but the silent kind, the kind where their own behavior becomes the evidence.
And what's wild is, you don't need to explain anything. The room feels it. The pattern reveals itself. The power dynamic shifts naturally.
But here's the real brilliance of the mirror. It doesn't leave blood on your hands. You didn't fight dirty. You didn't expose anyone directly. You simply stopped absorbing.
And in doing so, you revealed everything. You showed the room and them who they really are, without accusation, without a scene.
This is especially useful in environments where confrontation is risky, where being labeled difficult could cost you influence.
Right. The mirror protects your position while destabilizing theirs, and it leaves you clean, composed, calm, undeniable.
But the emotional control required, it's intense. You have to be so steady that nothing they do pulls you out of reflection mode.
That's where real power lives, in that stillness, in being the person no one can provoke, because you've already mastered your internal landscape.
And when others realize they can't unnerve you, they start to respect you, even if they don't like you.
That's the paradox. The mirror disarms, infuriates, and elevates, quietly, permanently.
What I love about this law, and also fear about it, is how quiet the destruction can be. You don't see it coming, and sometimes you don't even know it's happening until everything shifts.
That's the danger. The mirror doesn't leave marks, it leaves realizations. It doesn't bruise, it reveals. And those revelations, they either transform or enrage.
So let's be honest, should everyone use this law? No. It requires too much control, too much patience. If you're not centered, it becomes cruelty or chaos.
Right. You have to know why you're using it. Are you protecting yourself, disarming a threat, creating space for truth, or are you trying to humiliate?
Because if humiliation is the goal, you've already lost. You've entered the same cycle of ego games that this law is designed to break.
And the best users of this law, they don't even think of it as a tactic. It's a posture, a mindset. They've trained themselves to reflect, not absorb.
And that reflection creates clarity, and clarity creates choices. You stop reacting and start choosing, strategically, consciously.
That's what real power looks like. Not control over others, but mastery over your own responses, over your presence.
And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone see themselves fully, painfully, undeniably, without you saying a word.
That's the mirror. Not flashy, not loud, but unforgettable.
And maybe that's the lesson behind Law 44. Power isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about resistance, the right kind of resistance, the kind that holds the mirror and never drops it.
Next week, we shift gears with Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. It's all about momentum, timing, and how revolutions implode when they move too fast.
But for now, sit with this. When someone can't shake you, can't provoke you, can't hide from your reflection, that's when they realize they're not in control anymore.
And neither are you. The mirror doesn't control, it exposes. And in that exposure, everything changes.